Welcome. Thank you so much for being here. Linda, can you see? Okay, you could sit next to Hannah. Yeah. Yeah. Are you sure?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. If you missed part one, you gotta go now. Sorry. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Just leave. No, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Because everything will still, I hope you will find relevant to what it is that your heart needs to hear today. And anything else that you don't understand, feel free to ask questions at any time, interrupt me at any time. And anything you don't understand beyond that, beyond asking questions, and you can email or contact me afterwards. Google is a great place to just self-learn. Yeah, it really is. And so we don't need to be experts in the field for us to slowly return to the expert within us. It sounds so corny, but it's true. And human design is all about returning to the expert of being who you really are, with a capital WHO. The who of who you really are can never be touched, can never be altered. But the what of you can be altered, right? All the what's in your life. But that essence of who you are as a divine being in a human body can never be touched. So that is human design in a nutshell. Blah, blah, blah. I went over that last time, but I think some of you weren't here last time. So when I first came into human design was, sort of in between a couple spiritual awakenings. I was telling the group this morning that my first spiritual awakening was me being wrongfully accused of some horrendous things by my former employer. But why I bring that nugget up is because, well, human design allowed me to see that because of who those essences of who I am, that are non-mutable and permanent, at least in this body, it's okay that I got accused of those things that were egregious and lies and wrong about me, because using those specific proclivities and archetypes and gifts and patterns and gates and channels, I was able to see, oh, I'm kind of meant to be accused so that I can expand to releasing that shame. That is my karmic path or dharmic path or my incarnation cross. You'll hear about that in this lifetime. So all that to say, can something like astrology teach you that? It certainly can if you deep dive into the deepest recess of that. But what I like about human design is that it's a combination of 5 different systems that we've already had in the world. We've all known about the Hindu-Brahmin chakra system or chakras. You may have heard about the tree of life, which is this upside down. You may have seen the I Ching or the ancient Chinese divination system. You know about astrology already. And then you maybe know a little bit about quantum physics or mechanics. I know nothing, but you know how energy works, right? Or you have an idea of it, even if you couldn't articulate it. And so today we're going to go over how all of that combined becomes your strategy, your authority. There's something called the not self or signature. They're sort of the opposite. Sometimes they say that this is a non-signature. I'll explain what that means in a second. And then energy centers. And even then, we're barely scratching the surface. Last time I talked about types mostly. And does everybody in here know your type? People online, you at least know your type. And if you don't know your type because you don't know your exact birth time, just try to do different patterns of birth times and see what the results tell you, and choose the chart that most resonates. There is sometimes a difference. Actually, most often there is a difference. If you don't know your birth time, it does make a difference to what type you are, but you'll start to see what resonates with you more and more and more, and then you'll figure it out from there. So it's okay to not know your exact birth time. Okay, let's see here. Again, move this over here. An overview of what looks really complex when you first get your chart, a whole bunch of numbers on the left and right, a whole bunch of diagrams. But if you learn human design piece by piece, it should be it shouldn't be such an uphill battle if you do it piece by piece to understand those bits. Come on Good to see you again. How many of us are generators in this group? I know you're a projector. Yes, generators majority. Yeah, feel free. Yes, you are a generator. Yes, of course you are. Yeah, we most of us are. Yeah, and we have one projector at least. Yeah. And a manifesting. You are a manifesting. Of course you are. I mean, I say that like I really know, but I mean, it kind of makes sense given what we vibed on earlier. You're a generator with manifestor qualities. At the core, you're still a generator. Yeah. Then is anybody in here a pure manifestor? You're just a manifestor. Yeah. Yeah. It's very rare. Manifestors are only 8 to 10% of the planet. Any reflectors in the room? No reflectors. Yeah. Corey, what's your type? Do you remember, or did you look it up beforehand?
I have kind of like a, like a manifesting
Generator. Yeah.
And then there's little bits of other things because I just kind of have a mimicking personality. So whatever, like a survival thing. So
But are you a reflector or a manifesting generator? What does your chart say?
Most generator.
Ah, okay. You're a
I'm just thinking, like outside of the chart.
Sure. See, so now if we look at Corey's chart, we might see those mutable, those parts of him that wants to be all these other types, and you definitely are. Human design is not meant to say, well, you are just this and that's all you can be and you have no other. That's not the way it works either. Yeah, it's just your general proclivity in how you should harness energy given the pattern or the human blueprint with which your soul chose before you came into this body. So online folks, if you haven't gotten your chart, here is a place to get it, or you could just Google it. Get your chart, human design, any website will do. And the result will come out something along the lines of this. You have your type, right? There's only 5 types: generator, manifesting generator, projector, reflector, and why am I blanking? Is that 5 or 4? Yeah. I think manifestor. And manifestor itself. Yes. Thank you. And then there's a strategy and an authority, which we'll go over today. There are profile lines, definitions, incarnation crosses. We'd be here for 12 hours if we went into all that, but you are so welcome, and I encourage you to do your own research. Anything that snags you, oh, it says that I have a sacral authority. Google it, look it up, and deep dive into it. Fall down that rabbit hole, okay? But then don't forget to live life, and then go back to your chart, and then see how your life did or didn't line up with what you researched, which is the fun part. Okay. Feel free to jump in with any questions at any time. So we have the type, which is determined by certain energy centers connected or not connected to other energy centers. Your strategy today, let's review that real quick, okay? There are 4 strategies essentially. The manifesting generator sort of has a combo, but at the end of it, generator, you are a generator, so go with that. There's waiting for the invitation, projectors. There's responding, you're just meant to respond. There's informing, that's the manifestor. And then there's waiting a whole lunar cycle, which is for reflectors. Let's go over what that means. Okay, I love the words in yellow because they're much more fun for you to understand how you're working with energy, right? We'll start with generator because that's the most common. Okay? An alchemist, and that book, The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho, I mean, so resonating, but really it is that generators are here to alchemize what it is that's brought to them naturally, because generators are naturally magnetic. It doesn't mean that other people aren't magnetic in that sense, but our purpose as generators in this lifetime is to harness and alchemize that energy and build life with it, because we have the greatest life force. We have our sacral energy centers always defined. Manifesting generator, it's called a time bender. And I call my friend Sierra, who is a pure manifestor, a quantum leaper, a time bender, because you're able to alchemize things in lightning speed. If you just tell people what you plan to do, I don't know if you have that experience, things just happen. Things just happen so quick because manifestors are here to initiate things in this realm, to initiate the energy, to be the spark that turns on the engine, right? And the generator is the gasoline maybe that runs the engine, or the fire inside, the combustion. The orchestrator, okay, you are here to harness and guide the energy, but you don't need to combust the energy, right, to spark it, make it happen. And you don't need to keep stoking the energy. That's generators. So you really are an orchestrator, like in a symphony. You guide where the energy goes because you're able to really have a micro, you see the forest really for the trees always. You're able to have a macro sense of how things should go and how things work and how energy should be allocated. Yeah. Okay, and then the reflector is only 1% of the planet. What's 1% of 7 billion? Is that 700,000, 7 million? Whatever that math number is, only 1% of the planet are reflectors. And that's because we don't need that many reflectors, at least in this lifetime. They are meant to calibrate by reflecting back to humankind what's within themselves. And so they have no defined energy centers. No defined energy centers. I'll show you what that means in a second. It means that all of their energy centers are susceptible to being influenced, which can be very dangerous. Reflectors go through, you know, a tough time often in their life. But the 2 reflectors that I know in my life, they are the coolest people ever. They are so wise. One of them doesn't really know it. They really do imbibe in whatever it is that I am. They reflect back to me. You know, they really are a mirror. And so they have to wait for their lunar cycle before they make big decisions, because they have to see through all the reflections or phases of the moon before they come to what it is that they know to be true for themselves. Yeah. So it's just their strategy to wait for that 28, 29-day cycle so that they can see more clearly where it is that they should flow. Yeah. Okay, any questions about strategy? Strategy, let's see. I will explain more in a second using vehicular terms, but we'll get there. Okay, so now we have authority. And we have the lunar cycle, of course, related to reflectors, the sacral, very much often a generator authority, emotional, which is the solar plexus, self-projected, a sounding board environment, splenic, and ego. You'll notice that there's more than 5 types of authority. Well, that's because different types can have different authorities. Your authority depends on something else entirely besides your type. And so I'll go over that right now. What is authority? And let me go ahead and go to, and I will send all this out in the last bit of email. All right. Okay. We were just talking about this morning. The mind is a wonderful thing. The prefrontal cortex, the left brain, even the right brain. This thing that's above your eyes is wonderful for solving problems, learning how to drive the car, doing math. But human design tells us on a spiritual level, and many of us already know this, that yeah, we can use the mind to conceptualize and measure and analyze and do all this stuff, but what's not so great about it sometimes is that it then takes over. That conditioning that we're meant to decondition from is of the mind always. How do we drop out of the mind and into something else? Now, usually we say, okay, drop into the heart then, the heart consciousness, and it's true. In human design, though, it goes beyond the heart. The heart is part of it on a symbolic level, right? But on a human design level, if you look at your authority that you came into this world with, you can use that not as your ultimate authority, like God, follow your authority, God type of authority, but as a way to understand how your whole blueprint is meant to move in the world. And if you can move with less friction, your life will become easier and you start to live out your purpose better, right? A wagon is purposely designed with wheels that are round, but like my friend says, one of her wheels is square shaped. That's cool. It's her blueprint. She's meant to wheel herself mostly without friction, but then this wheel right here is square shaped. It's meant to be square shaped for her. She has to learn how to use that square properly. And that square is really useful in certain terrains and not the circular wheel, if that makes sense. That may not be the best analogy, but. And so when it comes to your authority, let's go to the emotional authority. If you look at your chart and you have an emotional authority, if anyone, yeah, feel free to pull out your phones. You're not gonna look distracted or anything. Like if you wanna, look at what your chart is, and those of you online, you have your computer in front of you anyway, see what your authority says on your chart, okay? If you have an emotional authority, it is in alignment with your human design to allow your emotions to reach a neutral level before you come to a conclusion or decision about something major, especially, okay? When you make a decision, when you're really on the highest of highs of emotions or the lowest of lows of emotions, it somehow will peter out to where you'll look back and think, oh, I should or shouldn't have made that decision because you are really high, and the world teaches you, oh, make a decision when you're excited. Well, have you ever been excited for something? And then the next day you're like, I don't want to go to that party anymore. I was excited, but maybe you have an emotional authority. Or worse yet, of course, we know it's generally not a great thing to make a decision from when you're in a low emotional state, grief, sadness. And so to that point, don't do that. Wait for your emotions to sort of peter out and be a little bit more neutral. And within that neutrality, you will find greater clarity for what it is that you need to make a decision on or how to move forward. Yeah. Okay, sacral. This is my authority. Many of us have sacral, yes. Yeah, which is awesome because it's very somatic. My mentor teacher in human design, she says, well, that party that you're thinking about, that job, that person, that relationship, that, thing you're going to purchase, are you when you really like sit with it, are you my heart is open, my chest is open, I can breathe easily, or is it you notice the difference in the right? And that's really what they say, is that your sacral will make noises. Maybe not in a literal sense, but or in a literal sense, but your gut knows, your sacral knows. And that is how you can know what your authority is telling you. Is this a or is it a there's sometimes a very difficult way to distinguish between the two, but it is very very ancient, the sacral authority. Yeah, it's no better or worse than any others. And in human design, there's no good or bad. All is unique to who you were made to be, right? Or who you rather chose if you have studied pre-birth planning. Okay, splenic. So splenic, what is the difference between your sacral and your intuition? That's a question that I've had for myself before. The difference is that the sacral speaks as if like a child. When you hold up a toy to the baby's only way to communicate is through noise and facial expressions, right? It can't tell you anything. It's the same thing. When you hold up that thing to someone with a sacral authority, we can respond just naturally with the baby in us almost, or with the ancient part of us, the amygdala in us, the monkey baby, if so to speak. But splenic is it's almost, I say, a combination of a knowingness, a clairsentient knowingness that it is what it is. You just have an instinct about something. And it could be in real life. I mean, people I know with splenic authorities, they're directionally sometimes very amazing. They just know that that's the right direction to go in, like literally on a map. but they don't know why that is. They just have a gut feeling. And we all have splenic energy, but maybe if your authority isn't splenic, that's not your main way of knowing how to move about with your energy. Okay, the ego authority, the G center is defined for sure. I haven't actually studied this that much, but according to what I've read, whatever it is that you somehow find a sense of self-will to accomplish, that is the good kind of ego telling you that, hey, this is a yes for you. Self-authority, anybody have that? That's a little bit more rare. Yeah. None of the previous enders are fixated, so the decision is based on whatever makes one truly happy when they contemplate it. Your happiness is the ultimate authority, and that's what's self-authority. That seems like a really easy thing. And I know people who just follow their happiness compass, and maybe they have this authority and it works out really good for them. But I think it was Jay, or is it Carter last time? Somebody said, oh, but every time I follow what makes me happy, it bites me in the butt most of the time. You know, he probably doesn't have the self-authority then, just because something's happy. So that is a very interesting authority to have. All right, no inner authority. That sounds not so great, but it's not. It's unique. They have to look around them to know what the authority is. They have to know what it sounds like to get the sounding board from everybody in their vicinity or their room. And then out of that sounding board will come their clarity. Yeah, that does sound more complicated. Lunar, it's for the reflectors often, but lunar, gotta wait for the moon to sort of give you that, that direction or field to go into, whether it's a yes or no. Yeah. Any questions on this? I urge you to do a lot more research on whatever is your authority. But I think this next bit is the most fascinating bit, and I am sorry, I will go to the vehicle in a second, I think. Yes. Where is the vehicle? Yeah, I'll get to that in a second. Yeah. Where I get into this as the vehicle, that is where authority and strategy will come into play. But let me rewind for a second and go back to signature. Okay, what is the signature and what is your not self? Or in other words, your non-signature. I say that this is the tell as in poker. What is the tell for when you're in alignment in your life or when you're not in alignment? Being in alignment isn't only good, and not being in alignment is only bad. If you think outside of the black and white paradigm, you have to have the not self things in order to know how to move forward, right? You have to know the contrast in life, the crappy, shitty things in life. You have to feel all the not self themes in order to come back into your signature. So your signature is, we'll start with that. Your signature is what tells you, literally and figuratively, right? Like I said, the tell in poker. What gives it away that you are walking your higher path, right? Your best path. For manifestors, it's a feeling of deep peace. For generators, it's satisfaction. And I always say, if you put your head on your pillow at night and you feel a deep sense, or even a superficial sense, I guess, of satisfaction, you just feel satisfied with the way you spent your energy. Even if you're pissed, tired, and physically you're drained and aching, you are in alignment with your signature as your type, your human design. For manifesting generators, still, it's a combo of satisfaction and peace. Projectors, success, it sounds egotistical. That's not what it's meant to sound like. Yeah, I feel successful. You feel a sense of having done what you came to do. That kind of success. It's not about monetary success, although it can be. It's about feeling that you got it done. You've done it and you were recognized for it. Yeah, so that, in that way, success. Reflector, surprise, yeah. A surprising feeling of a positive surprising feeling, not a bad kind of surprise. Yeah. It should take the reflector out of their norm and sort of jolt them like, oh, wow, wasn't expecting that. And as you begin to look up your friends' birth charts, see out of all the people that you know, most of them should be generators, right? Some of them, very few of them, manifestors or projectors. And then very few of them, if any, would be a reflector, because it's, again, only 1% of the planet. Yeah. And out of everybody I've known whose charts I've done, I've only ever encountered 2 reflectors. Yeah. Although you may encounter a lot, which is interesting. So what is the not self? It's so funny, in human design, the guy who channeled it all, he calls himself Ra Uruha, but he used to be named Alan, go figure. He said that, you know, the term not self, it's not because you're not being yourself, don't beat yourself up. It's just not your higher capital S self, your truer self, your spirit self, your soul self, your the being that's watching the play on earth that's happening, and you're on the balcony passing popcorn going, are you really going to do that? Oh, you're doing it? Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. You know, you're watching yourself, you know, play the role you're meant to play. And when you feel these things, you are very much doing the method acting. You're on the play alongside the actor in that film or TV show or stage play, and you're feeling all the feels, and you're meant to. You're meant to. But then know that in your sovereignty, you can lift yourself out of that, right? So not self. When you're not your higher self, anger is a big thing. For manifestors, just feeling that kind of upsettedness, anger at people, circumstances themselves, frustration. My whole life swimming upstream or paddling upstream, always frustration and always a sense of having to wait and being frustrated with waiting for my father to get his act together, my ex-partners. So a lot of frustration. Manifesting generators, the combo of that. Bitterness. Not as dramatic. It doesn't have to be like bitterness with a capital B. It can just be a sense of, I feel a little cheated out of something, or I feel like I was judged, or I feel any kind of bitter feeling at all is your tell for, something's not quite aligned here. And then disappointment for reflectors. Okay, let's take a quick moment. Those of you online, you'll have to talk to yourself, or I guess you could put it in the chat. I'd love to see that. Talk to the person next to you. So far, what stands out to you in general? Yeah, let's do that. Not have me talk the whole time. Go ahead. You two talk together. Yeah, you guys talk. You two, friends, you two. Yeah, what stood out to you? Type it in the chat.
I know, yeah, me too. Yeah. Yeah. I let's say right. Yeah. Yeah. I got married to still wanting to know how to like the signature so then what is that? So
Yeah. It's just your tell. The way like both harnessing that. But the key is not to be about the feelings, right? But it is a very easy way for you to figure out in what way I'm operating within my and my strategy, so that I can best move in that is so.
yeah.
It's one that,
Yeah.
How do we respond?
it takes black and white will, but it is a tell for And you should feel better. It's not that feel better. It's how you recover from that. That you get sorry, but the bitterness should tell you, not, oh, I'm happy to feel this, but rather, oh, something is operationally.
What is it
missing, like, it's slightly tweak in the wheel.
And then, he's accurate about what
Came
Pattern
into
tomorrow.
being because there's some kind of strategy or authority that was maybe you initiated something, or maybe, but again, I don't want to use those terms because you haven't done anything.
I think I
wrong.
was just thinking, but you're.
Yeah, it's not a black and white.
Rational.
But it was,
It's so weird for you to read the knowledge, like, on one side, person is moving smoothly in the world. I should feel that more than I feel. Right, right. Okay.
It's overwhelming.
Yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't even go so far as to say it's sign, it's yeah, I mean, I can.
Right.
It's a way for you to then readjust. But it is not a reason for you to be, not at all. You're meant to have enough. You just, you're also meant to have more signature than the milestone. You're meant to have way more, you're meant to, right? Way more, satisfaction than confusion in your life.
Right.
It's who you were made to be. Alrighty. Does anyone have any comments or questions or insights at all? There was a question about, well, but somebody wronged me. And you know, that's, that sucks. We've all been wronged. And I definitely felt bitterness from them wronging me. So then what? Bitterness can come in many forms. It's not that you did something wrong. It's how are we going to use that not self theme to be a little yellow light that pops up. And it pops up not for you to then beat yourself up for feeling better, because you should feel better. You wouldn't be human if somebody wronged you and you didn't feel something. But it's just a little light that lights up for you to say, oh, in what way can I go back to my authority and strategy and see where I could do differently next time? And perhaps let that remind me of who I really am, that I am meant to feel more signature than I am a not self person. And you'll never not be without those not self themes. You wouldn't be human if you didn't have frustration.
Is it about recovery then?
Yes, of course. All of
So,
life
like,
is
we all
about
feel
recovery.
The same emotions, but it's
Yeah.
the moment. Like I may not give a, boot and then not feel as much bitterness, but I do feel initial bitterness, but I just recover faster.
Yeah.
But then in my authority of whatever, something else might happen and you might not feel frustrated, but I'm completely frustrated. That's what you're saying about them.
Well, your type, remember, your type goes with your specific not self themes, right? Those themes don't apply to everybody in terms of type. But of course, as a human, you can feel all those things, and you can feel all those things either. But when you, out of your type, specifically feel bitterness, if you're a projector, then you can use it as a marker or a signal post for yourself to come back into alignment. That's all.
Right.
And you're right that all of life is recovery / deconditioning / a journey, all the metaphors. Yeah. And you'll never not, are you even human if you don't feel all these things? I mean, you're not. You're meant to feel all of them. It's just that for your type specifically, the way your energy is meant to operate in its fullest capacity, these are the things that will tell you whether or not that energy is being operated at the fullest capacity. But if it's not, don't beat yourself up. Never, ever beat yourself up. You just acknowledge it. Oh, my blueprint, it allows me to harness my energy this way. And then respond from there instead of react. Yeah. Yes, go for it. Bill.
I appreciate this. It's an all-encompassing system. I can see how it would help people to understand themselves and improve. I did miss the first session. Could you clarify, when you say authority, does that mean how we tend to act, how we tend to think?
No, it's your inner, let's see. I always mix this up. Your strategy tells you how you are meant to harness your energy, and your authority tells you almost what to harness it on. It's both the strategy and the authority come from the way your blueprint is, and from there, it's a directional compass for you. It's kind of like telling a Ferrari, I hate to use car metaphors because I'm not a car person, but it's like telling a Ferrari, hey, you were never meant to be a Pinto, so you don't have to like go this slow. You're actually meant to do these things with your vehicle. Or vice versa, telling, you know, a Prius not to go 120 miles an hour on the freeway because everybody else around that Prius is doing so. Reminding the Prius that you are a Prius and you are uniquely and wonderfully made as a Prius, and you don't need to be a Ferrari. Yeah. So the strategy and the authority allows you to harness your energy in a way that is appropriate for who you are. The Prius has certain proclivities in it that make it not better or worse, but just very different than the way a Ferrari handles energy, right? Does that make sense? I can't.
Yes.
Wars.
That clarifies. And
yeah, and do a deep dive, Bill. Research very deeply. Just keep watching some YouTube videos on strategy for your specific strategy, for your specific authority. And ultimately, those two umbrellas allow you to get a sense of, am I moving through the world with the appropriate, you know, am I kayaking through this water with a square kayak or an oval rounded kayak or a streamlined like diamond shaped kayak? Like there's different things that are suitable for different circumstances in life, right? You get to harness your unique shape for the right kind of water or the right kind of dirt or the right kind of context, I should say.
And what determines these tendencies?
Oh, yeah, that's a deeper
hereditary,
thing.
astrological, or combination?
Well, yes, astrological. I think we do have time to get there by the end. We still have 45 minutes. How does it deter? It's very complex. It's very complex. It's a combination of what your centers are, what your channels are, what the astrological placements are when you were born, 30 days before you were born. There's a whole. So what determines that? Yeah, all those things, all the above. Yeah.
Thank you.
What determines your type is really simple, though. What determines your type is just certain energy centers that are defined, that are connected to others. For generators, for instance, the sacral energy center is always defined because generators are meant to be builders of this planet. If we don't have that defined sacral energy, that life force, the greatest chi within us, then we wouldn't have like built the pyramids. But who came up with the idea for the pyramids? It's probably the manifestors and the projectors and the reflectors of that time. Yeah.
Should I trip up on the time of day? I bet people ask that a lot in the last session.
Yeah. So if you don't know your birth time, is that correct? Then you could do increments of 3 to 6 hours. So I would search 12 a.m. for that same day, 12 p.m. and then 6 a.m., 6 p.m. and see all 4 charts and what they come out to.
Okay.
If all 4 of them say that you are this type, then you know you're at least that type. But
Yeah,
then when you look at all the other layers of the chart and you see the different features, you'll then need to just begin to parse out which one you gravitate towards more. And that you might be narrowing down your birth time that way, like reverse engineering
It
it.
doesn't vary by minute by minute. It's like.
I think it's bigger chunks than that, yeah. And the reason why birth time matters is because the whole where the planetary systems are, the neutrinos coming in, yeah, all sorts of things that I don't even understand, but it all
Guess I better look at my
matters.
certificate when I get home.
Yes,
Find
yes.
out.
Everybody inevitably has to call their mom or dad and ask to see the birth certificate. Who knows their birth time, right? We all know our birthday and birth location, but yeah, but matters and also doesn't matter. Don't over black and white your human design, because otherwise then it becomes another rigid system. Yeah, but yeah, have fun with it. Search all 4 times. Yeah. Yeah, Raphael, go for it. Yeah, so Raphael, I think you're muted still. Maybe Raphael has their hand up, but they stepped away. Yeah, it's okay. Raphael, interrupt us at any point. At any point. All right. So let's go to, sorry, I kind of took over there. Any other thoughts about what you and your exchange partner talked about? Yeah, go ahead.
I don't know if it's a strategy, but maybe just, take a little bit more time and reflecting on the situation, and then also kind of considering what kind of person, like whatever's causing me, like I have frustration and anger, my initial thing is to meet it head on. I'm like, well, maybe I did that for the military, but that's not the proper way, in the modern workplace. So let me take it back a little bit. And then, but then I'm thinking like, are they having some kind of frustration, anger? Are they having a bad day?
Mhm.
Is there a pattern,
Yeah.
Is this just happening once per day? Like say at a workplace, is this happening just one day? Or is this going, ongoing chronic issue? Dealing with energy. I'm like, well, I have my own energy and I generate, but it's a constant flow, it's like,
Yeah.
oh.
Yeah.
So I don't know if we, should we give some balance or some thought to the other person, whoever's, causing that, not self issues, maybe.
Always.
Or the thing, right?
Always, yeah.
I don't usually have problems with inanimate objects, causing me issues or something like that. Usually it's operator error, like coffee pot or whatever, breaks or something like that.
Yeah. To your point, the not self and signature themes, they're a general pattern. They're a general pattern. And if that pattern exists in your life, for me, a pattern of frustration for many years in my life, because I was constantly paddling upstream and not realizing that I'm meant to allow the river of life to be the engine that runs this raft, right? And that I'm meant to steer only and not paddle. You see the difference in energy, steering and not paddling, or excuse me, paddling and just steering. When I saw the repeated pattern of frustration, that was the tell for me. And so maybe that could be a clarifying distinguishment. Is there a pattern of this? It's not, oh, Corey, today you frustrated me. And that, oh, that's my not, no. It's not even a specific moment or specific person or context. It's a general pattern of overall in your life. Do you feel continual bitterness? Do you feel continual disappointment? Do you feel continual anger? And my manifestor friend, Sierra, I brought her up in our first workshop. She is a quantum leaper. She is pure manifestor. She had so much anger in her life for so many years. And after she finally got clean from alcohol, joined AA and had her own spiritual transformation and rebirth. You can you can, I mean, of course, she'll still get angry, but that theme of repetitive anger all the time within her heart, it's no longer there. She just has immense peace right now. Yeah, and it's amazing to see things happen so quickly for her. But she wouldn't be able to do it without generators around her, because we build the engine that keeps it going. That she, you know, sparks the project, the work, the program, the thing. But then the other people around her keep it going. Yeah, pattern. And it's, again, it's not just about, oh, well, that person did this and so it caused me bitterness. It's overall, do I have a sense of bitterness in my life because, or in my heart rather, because I constantly am your own version of paddling upstream. I'm constantly not recognized for my abilities and my gifts. I constantly have to initiate, not meant to, right? I'm constantly building things, not meant to, or doing the hard labor. Not that you're never not building, but you know, the immense life force labor. Yeah. So yeah, this is just one way for us to be a little bit more aware of what is your invitation to step into your strategy and authority. Yeah. Or get rid of those terms and get rid of all the things you've learned and just ask yourself, what is my invitation right now? Because I see the tell happening over and over. What is my invitation to step into my higher self? Just leave it at that. Yeah. Okay, energy centers. If you flip this right side up, there's the Kabbalah tree of life. And in, you know, I'll call it Lululemon yoga. In Lululemon paradigms, the simplistic chakra system, we just have 7 chakras, but of course in human design, there's a lot more than that. So we'll start at the top, your head, your crown. There's big ideas and inspirations there. Your mind or ajna. I have a very defined ajna, definitely a birthplace of intuition, problem solving, detail oriented. Throat, all manifestors or manifesting generators usually have a defined throat. That is a way for us to express ourselves, right? The throat chakra. And that is a way for you to manifest what's in you. Your G or your identity center. It's all about your love of self and others, giving and receiving, your purpose, your identity. I have a very undefined identity center. And when I say very, I just mean it's either defined or undefined. Undefined, being open to influence. I'm able to, and this has caused a lot of frustration, step into a lot of different identities. And taken that on, you know, the shameful Cheryl, especially as a little girl. And now I get to release that, but allow myself to come back to parts of it that serve me, right? That protect me when I need to. Ego, the heart, it's all about willpower there. And you would think that love is in the ego and heart. No, that's a different center. The solar plexus, emotional, that is an undefined for me. If you have an undefined solar plexus, you're very susceptible to other people's emotions, especially susceptible. And that's not a bad thing. You're very open to mirroring it back. Sacral, all generators have a defined sacral, very strong, vivid life force, because we are here to sustain life. Your sexual chakra is also there. Your splenic energy center, your spleen, it's all intuition, fear, instinct, immune system. And last but not least, your root chakra. This is where during a meditation, let's say a grounding meditation, you would picture the roots literally for me coming out of like, you know, my lower back area and then like burrowing into the ground and grounding myself. Because whenever I feel lots of stress or pressure or adrenaline and I have an undefined root, I go, and everybody I know who has a defined root, they are so much, it's not that they're not immune to pressure or stress and adrenaline. They do. They just are able to they are equipped to handle it in a much more stable way. And if you look at the charts of your friends and family and you see that they have a defined root, you'll start to see that distinguishment. Oh yeah, they make really good EMTs, right? Or firefighters. Yeah. But for me, because it's undefined, and maybe yours is undefined. No, it is defined. Yeah, undefined. Yeah, it's open, right? We go whenever there's adrenaline, pressure, stress. Yeah. Yeah. So we have to do a lot of grounding meditation. Yeah. All right. What does it mean to have defined? If you look at your chart real quick, right? Define just means that that's colored in. So this person has their head, their ajna, their throat, their G center, and their solar plexus and their sacral defined, and they have 3 undefined centers. And so let's go back to, excuse me, moving through. Let's go back to what defined means, right? Yeah, yeah. But right now, if you don't have yours open, you can guess what yours is or isn't. Just take a guess and then play with it. See if you were right later. There is no good or bad, remember? So just because one thing is defined and one thing's undefined, or vice versa, it does not mean it's terrible or good. It just is what it is, because you are uniquely and wonderfully made. Defined just means that it's a consistent energy output. That's all it is. It's just consistent. Does it mean that you never have inconsistencies? No, of course not. Even defined centers can sometimes not be defined. In other words, even that energy can sometimes peter out. But for the most part, your general proclivity, if you have that as your defined center, is that it is delivering a steady stream of that impact for yourself and for others. And that's all it means. Defined. I liken it as, what's a good metaphor? Like a sponge that is able to, when you press into it, it's able to leak out whatever it absorbed, right? And undefined, it's sort of like, instead of having a sponge hold that liquid, just like it's just spilled in lots of places. Not that that's bad either. We need energy in many different places, but it doesn't hold it quite in as consistently. So your defined center will always be there to radiate out that impact for others. And vice versa, if your defined center encounters, let's say, your lover, boyfriend, girlfriend, spouse, your defined center in your solar plexus encounters their undefined center in their solar plexus, well, you can kind of guess how that may clash. One has a consistent output of that, whatever that center is, and the other just is totally influenced and susceptible to it. And so what does undefined mean then, right? Undefined means that it's just a little less consistent or a little bit more open or susceptible to absorbing. And that's it. It's not good or bad. When you have an undefined, let's say, identity center for myself, sometimes I find myself being very inconsistent with where I pull in my identity, right? Identities, I should say. Oh my gosh, I'm also a teacher, but I'm also a healer, but I'm also this daughter. Whereas everybody I know who has a defined G center, they have a lot more sureness of the who of who they are, at least the who, lowercase who, not the upper who, of this world. They just are very certain because their energy there is very consistent. To manage your undefined centers, work with it instead of being victimized by it. Yeah. Can you imagine being a reflector though? You have only undefined centers. They are constantly influenced by everything. Yeah.
What would working with it look like, and what would you define it more?
Yeah, define the undefined more.
Yeah.
Gosh, I used to have a slide where, let's see. Yeah, that's a great question. Give me 1 second while does anyone have any other questions in the meantime? Yeah. You have things, what?
That's highlighted on all of them.
Oh, here, the colored parts, if you look at her chart, the colored parts where there's pink, that's the defined centers. The open white parts are the undefined centers. Yeah, so if there's color in that shape that represents your center, that's undefined. Yeah, if there's color in there, then it's defined.
Are you gonna go over if in our defined centers, if the numbers are highlighted?
The numbers are all gates, and yeah, I'll preview that. That's in part 3. Yeah, yeah. There's so many layers, yeah. Okay, so let's do an example. If you have an undefined ajna, and raise your hand if you see that this particular section of your chart has no color. Okay, so quite a few people in here. Aha, aha. Okay, okay. Raise your hand if you have an undefined head or crown. Okay, yeah, and I have an undefined head, but I have a defined mind. Okay. The head is all about inspiration. There's anxiety, there's mental pressure, right? For me, because I have an undefined crown, I have to be very aware. I get to be very aware of the kind of mental pressure I put on myself to think a certain way, act a certain way, output a certain way. Am I being inspired or not inspired? I have to just use my awareness to regulate my awareness of it, if that makes sense. But because I have a defined ajna or mind, my conceptualization is very, very consistent. My ideas are consistent. I'm able to really get my answers and conceptualize my details in a very consistent manner. If yours is not defined, then you get a lot of different ways in which you can be aware, and you're very frustrated by all the different ways in which you can be aware. Like, I'm sensing that's resonating in some way. I'm not even being articulate right now. There are so many different ways of processing, and you're overwhelmed by it all. And decision paralysis is huge with those with an open ajna. If you have an open ajna, welcome, come on in, grab a seat. If you have an open ajna center, that is one of the symptoms in the 3D, right, in the body, is like decision paralysis, because you have 10 different ways in which to process stuff, and which way is the best, and what's the right answer. It's harder for you to get to, but it by no means means that it's a bad thing. Yeah, you are meant to, again, like, we're each, I hate to use the term snowflakes, each are different, right? Or thumbprints. We are each so different that it's up to us in how we come together to make this world, full of love and expansion. How do I work with your undefined mind and ajna, because you have something else that is defined that I need for us to do something together. Yeah, like build this pyramid or whatever.
So if it has like I have an undefined ajna, but I have a defined throat chakra, it's that like, I have the ability to articulate what I want to say and to get my point across. However, I overthink in how I want to say it, and I get stuck in that, like, okay, what if should I say it this way, or how do I say it? And I just kind of get stuck in that realm of not wanting to come out a certain way, and then doesn't come out.
It's the catch-22. It's the catch-22. Yeah, there's the catch-22 you're talking about. Like, they're working, they can work in tandem, and then if they're working in tandem, it can be very powerful. However, when it's, not their ideal. And by the way, throat is not just literal vocal expression, right? It's the manifestation expression. Like, the idea for this table was in someone's mind, and then through their throat chakra, this came out. So not in a literal voice sense, but in a making things into this reality sense, and communicating. You can see here, and you were asking questions about numbers earlier. One of my most defined gates is 56. And that is the gate of assimilation. And I am able to take really detailed, complex information, digest it, and spread it out through my metaphorical throat into digestible ways for others. Specifically, that is my active gate within the throat chakra. So as you drill down to later on the gates and the channels, you'll be able to see even more complexity. And then also, what planet is the throw at what time of the year? Like, then it gets even more complex, and we'll kind of get a preview of that later. Yeah. Let's see here. What else? Oh, sacral center. Raise your hand if you have a defined life force or sacral, right? Yes. You have the ability to also burn yourself out because you are using your sacral sometimes in a way that is not meant for you to use your sacral, right? Even the engine has to have the right casing for that combustion to occur effectively. And so what is the casing in which your life force or your power is working consistently in? And then if you don't have a defined sacral, oh yeah, it can fluctuate your life force. And I know that there are certain people I know with really where they're at in their life in a really dark place. They especially not only don't have a defined sacral, but they literally just have a really low life force within themselves, to the point where they might opt out of the planet. And I don't mean suicide per se, I just mean when people opt out of life in some way. We've all have been there, zombified yourself, right? You've opted out of something in your earthly realm, and you've stopped living, but you're alive, you're just not living. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that, I'm thinking of one particular person, my ex, who he doesn't have a sacral defined, but he very much has a defined root. Defined roots, raise your hand if you have a defined root. Yeah, see, when you're put to the test with pressure, you can channel that adrenaline in such an enormous way. You're able to do that without being everywhere. And I'm not necessarily as easily able to do that without a defined route. Yeah. As long as you channel that adrenaline and pressure into, into that avenue with which you're meant to channel it into. Yeah.
Work better under pressure. I need that.
And you have a defined route?
Yeah,
There you go.
I need
Yep.
that pressure.
Yep.
It's motivation. It's
Yes.
like, okay,
Yeah.
I have this much time and I
Yeah.
can do this,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
let's get it all.
Yeah. There you go. And in combo with your life force here, these are really powerful places to have definitions. We were the people who built the pyramids. I keep using that as an example, but I mean, it's talk about built Machu Picchu, whatever. We were the people who, under pressure or stress or the good kind of adrenaline, had to output this life force in the world and build stuff, literally and figuratively build stuff.
It's interesting how the pressure is under root and under crown.
Pressure is directly the opposite of crown.
No,
Or-
It's listed under
it's
crown,
under
it says
crown
pressure.
and pressure. under
Crown.
root.
Oh, yeah. No, they're both different kinds of pressure. Yeah. They're both different kinds of pressure. This one is the cerebral pressure, and this one is more like somatic and body pressure. Yeah, but they're both full of pressure. Let's see, mental pressure. Yeah, the head center is mental pressure, and the root is, physical pressure, life pressure. Yeah.
So if it's undefined and we have the numbers circled within, like for instance, if my root is undefined, but there's a conscious or unconscious connection, how do
Yes.
we use that then?
We'll explain it. We'll
Okay.
explain it in a bit. Yeah.
Can you go over the spleen? I got my throat and the spleen are
Defined.
fine, yeah.
Yep.
I couldn't think of-
Yep. Yeah. Colored in, right? Colored in.
Right.
Defined splenic, here, we can look at that real quick. And and if there's ever any doubt or questions or wonderings, definitely do a deep dive. You can reach out for any questions at any time, but definitely do a deep dive. Human design is almost, I think, meant to be self-learned in so many ways, because the whole point of it is that it's experimental. Not experimental in, oh, is it true or not true, like a science experiment, but experimental as in you don't understand or know it really until you live it out. And so you almost have to live out the splenic, whatever it entails, for you to then realize it or understand it.
So,
Um,
so
Yeah.
So I probably missed it, but undefined, if we see undefined, we just disregard it?
No, 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 no. If you see an undefined center, it means, and if I were to do your human design reading with that, what I do in my readings, it's like 60% me teaching, 55-60% me teaching, and 40% me using what I know about you to guide you through, coaching, essentially. If you have undefined centers, like this person, Jane Doe, has 2 undefined centers, it means that when you look up splenic undefined, or for you, it's defined, look into what it is that you're just more susceptible to, the variation in energies. For this person, Jane Doe, they're going to have directionally and in their intuitive sense a lot more openness or spongeness to absorb other surroundings, environments, and other people's energies in that area. That is, yeah. So think about your life. You've gone in many different directions in a way, and your intuition has, I don't want to use the word all over the place because that sounds bad, but it's not bad. It's part of your life journey that you were meant to have an undefined splenic so that you can then return to, well, the other parts of you that can work in conjunction with that. I think for you, well, the opposite, you have a defined splenic. You almost help other people, at least the you I know, harness their own instincts and intuition because you have the ability to be so spongy and open and reflect it back to them. That inconsistent output of yours is helpful for you to be former president of the Theosophical Society because you're helping other people develop their intuition. Yeah.
So but it seems to me like if you have an undefined root, for example, that would be really, I mean, root's pretty vital, right?
Root is pretty vital, but as they say in human design, not one single thing is better or worse than the other. It just can't be. It simply can't be, right? If you even think about it on a.
Do you think having an undefined root, like mine is defined, but for somebody who has an undefined root, do you think that they find sources of stability? Like they need something to keep them stable, right? And so if they have an undefined root, then they're looking for other sources of stability in their life, which could be
And
system, people,
yes,
whatever.
and that can be beneficial if you think about it from a different angle, right? And undefineds, I forgot to say, undefineds help amplify whatever it is that's around them that is defined. So we need that. I need my partner, if I have an undefined root or vice versa, to reflect back or amplify or de-amplify what it is that I have. Yeah. Yeah.
So when you look at couples charts.
Yes, and I've done couples readings.
Yeah. Is
Oh,
it
yes.
good for them to like be complementary? Like if one doesn't have this, the other one does. It's really good, right? I would think so.
As we said this morning, what is good and what is bad?
Right.
The most fiery, they were almost on the verge of basically divorcing. This couple that I had a reading for, everything on their chart was complementary. It's up to you. Do you perceive that to be a good thing or a bad thing, right? You get the sovereignty of choice. Wherever hers was defined, her husband's was undefined and vice versa. Yeah. And so of course they would amplify or de-amplify each other's energies in all those specific areas. So once they saw that, literally, right, and absorbed it intellectually and could see that it resonates, then they were able to be so much more accepting of each other because it's like, oh, we came together because we were complementary in this way. We were meant to stoke each other's biggest areas of growth, and your undefined centers are one of your biggest areas of growth. Yeah. Yeah, doesn't mean that you don't need to work on your defined centers either. There's no black and white in human design. Yeah, you get to choose, but at least you now know, oh, these areas that have no color are more susceptible to being off track or inconsistent, or influenced by others. And that's it. That's not a bad thing. You're meant to be influenced in certain ways because that's your role in life.
Like you might be drawn towards a certain spirituality or philosophy based on the feeling that you need that filled there, or more definition.
That's one example, yeah. In the example of the couple, one with a defined solar plexus and one with an undefined solar plexus, I mean, they were always coming up with their emotions, right? They were always coming up with ways in which the person with a defined emotional authority, or excuse me, solar plexus defined center, had to step into their higher self and allow their more stable and consistent emotions to herd her emotions in, because her emotions were like cats running around everywhere, right? Being susceptible to his emotions. So it's his job to watch and be aware of what emotion he is outputting, because she's just amplifying everything that he's outputting. So whose fault is it during a fight? You know, it's not one person or the others. It's never that. They're both being whatever their energy center says they are. But yeah, the more that she was able to step into a place of, oh, because of my undefined energy, excuse me, my undefined solar plexus, I now can see that when you are angry, I just take on that anger and bounce it right back to you and amplify it. And now I know to draw an energetic field of protection because I have an undefined solar plexus, and not take it personally, not throw it back at you, not amplify it, not, you know, all those things to regulate. And then his responsibility is to be very aware of what definition of emotions he's outputting, and to not hurt her, even undeliberately. Yeah. Oh yeah, we can get into the weeds of it. If you look at you and the most contentious person in your life, or one of them, like when I look at my dad's chart. Oh, yeah, me and him are meant to be soulmates in that regard, to help each other ascend. And your human design tells you, yes, oh yes, this is why. And then we're also so complementary in that way, right? Like the good kind of complementary. We really have so many things that are the same, that I can see exactly why the parts of us that are not the same come into friction. And those are the areas of growth that we have. All right. So here is, yes, here is the better explanation. And let me go into any questions or comments. Let me go into, yeah. This the circular diagram, right? They call it the rave mandala. The gates, all these numbers here, and you could see if I were to transpose this, right? You see how 42, 3, and earlier you were saying that some of your roots or some other gates were defined, right? 60, 52. Take a look at what corresponds, right? So 42 is lit up or has a circle around it. Do you see 42 here? Okay, no, you don't see it here. Ignore the second number after the decimal. Okay, those are profile lines. We'll go over that in a future workshop. But you see 42. Okay, 42 is right there in this person's sun. Personality, conscious design, subconscious design. But this is lit up for a reason, and that's in their sacral. And so we'll get into what that means. 42 lit up here, right? Sun. Okay. And eventually, when you look through how there's something called the incarnation cross at the bottom of your chart. How you end up finding your incarnation cross has a lot to do, if you've ever done an astrological reading, your north node, your south node, your dharmic path, all of that. That's all part of what would show up in your rave mandala or in your human design as well. Is that in this lifetime, and all you have to do is Google what your, incarnation cross means. In this lifetime, you were meant to transcend those parts of your subconscious and meld them and integrate them with your conscious. This person's incarnation cross, you can kind of see any X pattern. It might be this one and this one might be their incarnation cross. Yeah, and I think that is the case because if you think about it, let me go back to their chart. Okay, yeah, 61, 42, 62, 32, that's usually their incarnation cross, at least what I remember. I am not really being clear at all what that all means. But I will end the last 10 minutes with this, okay? This is the part that I was really wanting to get to. Okay. Our human design selves are divided into two parts overall. There's your unconscious part of you, and there's your conscious part of you. In human design, they just use the terms your design versus your personality. Those terms do kind of work, right? Because you would think your personality is exactly what you are aware of. Oh, Cheryl loves like eating apples. Cheryl loves like talking to her friends this way. Cheryl loves yoga, that, you know, whatever that is. It's what you are consciously in knowledge of. And so your conscious design contains knowledge that tells you your overall soul purpose here. And to the degree that you are conscious of it is the degree in which you can be aware of it and change it or alter it or adapt it when needed. If I'm in the library and if my personality is very talkative, then I know that I can exercise some degree of control over it to adapt to that library atmosphere, right? But these are things that you more than likely know about yourself already. And if you were to look up all the numbers corresponding to the gates on the right side of your chart, you would see, yeah, like this makes sense. I know this about myself already. This side here is your unconscious design, and that was decided about 90 days before you were born. Cheryl, why 90 days? I still am not completely sure, but there's something about the soul choosing in the pre-birth planning, this is what I'm imbuing myself with in the human body. Then after those 88 days, you were born. And it doesn't matter if you were a preemie, a C-section, a late baby, like none of that matters. It's all pre-orchestrated. But your design is really the actual thing in which you are integrating right here in this room to understand, because you never realized that you had this vehicle or body. And I don't mean physical body. I mean the structure in which you came in with. You were already aware of this, but this is the structure in which you came in with as well. And your unconscious elements are the things about yourself that others might see even better. Yes.
Up at the top, it says human vessel and soul.
Yep.
It seems like those are in the wrong. It seems like the conscious would be the human
Right.
vessel, and the
Right.
unconscious would be the soul. So what's the?
It's in reverse, and I'll explain why in a second. Yeah, I know it seems like it's opposite, right? But it's not. Your human vessel is, it's not just the body, it's the structure with which the archetype, the role, the costume that you're coming into, really. This though is who you are even after you die. Like right now, if you're going to communicate to me in the non-physical, like through a medium or whoever, we could just communicate. That's still who you are and who you see yourself to be, which is why the soul is still the personality and the design is the human vessel. I know that doesn't quite make sense yet, but let's see if the vehicle metaphor works. Okay. And this part, I do need to look at my notes because this is a little bit complex. If our personality represents what we're consciously aware of, and it's who we think we are, our design, on the other hand, is all our unconscious tendencies and something that maybe other people have pointed out to us or our circumstances have pointed out to us. But personality, right? That soul part, the part that you're conscious of, it can be compared to the roads, and then your design is the tunnel. Okay, one more time. Your personality can be compared to the road, and your design can be the tunnel. You can see where the road goes, but you may not know where the tunnel may be, if that makes sense. Where both the design and the personality have a defining gate, and you'll see numbers that exists on both sides of the chart, right? Then that channel gets created and it's like a road with a tunnel or a tunnel with a road underneath. That was a lot, right?
Yeah,
That's cool.
maybe once we start looking at each aspect.
Oh,
of
yeah,
it,
yeah.
really
Yeah.
based
Oh,
on what you
totally,
said.
totally. Yeah, yeah. Some people get it right away and some people don't, the roads and tunnels analogy, but this next analogy should have more resonance, right? But before I move to that slide, your design and your personality combined, the road and the tunnel, give rise to those basic elements in your life. And it gives rise to duality in your life as well, because the tunnel and the road are dualities together, right? You are not who you think you are.
Love that.
You are not who you think you are. All that tunnel, I always, okay, I'm on the road, I see the road, but I didn't know that the tunnel was part of me too. Yeah. Okay, now let's use car analogies. Okay, you see this person sitting in the back, like looking a little bit frazzled, right? Your body is the vehicle and your mind is the passenger. When you are imagining yourself in the unconscious, right? You don't know yet until this moment right now that your unconscious already came with its own driver. But the whole time you thought you were the driver. Does that make sense?
Yeah, actually.
Yeah.
Is this saying that we don't have like our own will? Like our.
In a way, see, we can also bring in fate, destiny along with free will and part of this conversation, but your conscious side is the passenger and it sits in the back seat. But the whole time on Earth, well, not the whole time, the first half of your life before your Saturn return, you're walking your South Node, you know, all those things, the deconditioning process, right? The whole time you think that not only are you the vehicle, you're the driver of the vehicle. You're not. You're meant to just be the passenger of your own vehicle. Your vehicle self-drives itself. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so you mentioned that we were the passenger, and after that point, we will become the driver.
If you so choose to embark on your hero's journey, yes, the spiritual path, yes. You are now doing that. You're slowly being aware that you are more the passenger than you are the driver.
That's basically telling the, the car is self-driving, it's like, okay, you have your own ability, like you've already kind of gone, I'm just gonna sit here. It's like.
It's pre-programmed. Yeah, it's pre-programmed.
Yeah.
How are you going to adapt to being in that vehicle, right? 99.99% of your filter is subconscious. You guys all know about how hypnotism works, right? Consciously, we may think one thing, but so long as your subconscious is still whatever it is, you will always repeat those patterns in your life, right? So your decisions, the conditioning in your unconscious is the generational, the imprinted. It affects 99 symbolically and metaphorically % of the decisions that are made by you, and you don't even know it because you weren't conscious of it. You just thought you were the vehicle. She gets it.
And if you fight it, you are a backseat driver.
Yes.
If you embrace it, then you realize the relief of like, okay, so it's car cruise.
Oh, I'm getting chills. Exactly. Right?
Might be trying to steer, but it's a lot easier if you just let the river take you.
In whitewater rafting, yeah.
Take you.
But you are still asked to read the water so that you know in what condition to steer and what condition to paddle a little bit and what condition to take your oar out of the water. That's whitewater rafting 101. The best guides are not the most powerful ones, the ones with the fanciest equipment, the strongest one. The best whitewater rafting guides, my ex was one, is one. They know how to read and work with the water. Those are the best guides,
So
right?
currents would be like,
The current is God,
The
life,
tunnel.
source, universe,
oh, okay.
in that metaphor. And in this metaphor, yeah, like God and source and energy
The
are
vessel.
your vessel. Yeah,
The shape
the
of the
vehicle
path.
that you came with. Yeah, and the highway and the tunnel. Yeah, it's all of the above. Yeah, but specifically, I guess, with the previous analogy, the tunnel. Yeah. Okay, but if you think about it as a passenger in a car, right? The passenger actually has very little control. You're not doing the work too. The car is doing the work, right? You can feel the effort being exerted, but you're not consciously exerting that effort. The unconscious is doing most of the work, and therefore unconscious alignment or misalignment will have an effect on you. And you could see that in the patterns in your life, you know, all the things that suck. And so if your vehicle is not maintained, then you don't get to your destination no matter how ready you are. Right? Self-care, energetic maintenance happens at the unconscious level. Taking care of your body starts with taking care of your vehicle. And that's pun intended, because vehicle and body are the same thing. Yeah, and I mean, not just physically, but your subconscious self coming into this earth. Part of you that didn't have a choice, quote unquote, but you did, you just forgot about it, that you planned it that way. You planned for you to be in this kind of car, right? With this costume. Yeah,
like
go
does
for it.
the unconscious part of us also include like the social conditioning, the how we grew up under people's influence?
What do you all think?
It's a really good question. I was wondering the same thing. Like
Is that the
trauma.
dents in the car?
I think that social conditioning is like all the gravel and the dirt and the mud and the bumps and the potholes on the road. We are like, oh my gosh, vehicle, you just like, can't you go over that pothole better? Like, why don't you grow a bigger tire so that you can go, we think we're the vehicle, and we're trying so hard to make the vehicle, a Range Rover instead of a little Prius going over that pothole. But it doesn't work that way. We're meant to, when the potholes come, we're meant to still sit back in our Prius and enjoy and relax and let the vehicle still take us to our destination, no matter the pothole.
Anxiety case.
Yes.
It was like go for the pothole.
Right. No, yeah, and you're meant to, right? Like if there are potholes on the road, or there's like water on the road, or whatever the condition is, it doesn't matter if you're driving a Ferrari or a Prius, a Range Rover, or a low-hanging sedan, like a low-level sedan. Like at some point, the vehicle just does what the vehicle does. But it's meant to just be the vehicle. It's not meant to, when there's a pothole, the Prius can't just suddenly transform into a Jeep to transcend that pothole, because it was just all part of the journey. Now we're getting into the weeds of it.
We're all
but
skidding all the time, so we just gotta.
We're all encountering different conditions that may or may not be suitable for our vehicle. But the most important part is that you're not meant to even you're meant to maintain your vehicle, but you're meant to sit back and enjoy the ride. That's the whole point of human design. And in this, right, it literally says, oh, and Bill, we'll get to you in just a second after I finish this bit. Thank you for raising your hand. Oh, shoot. Here, can you still see that, Bill? The greatest illusion. What is the greatest illusion, right? The greatest illusion is that you're your car. Like, hey, you need to drive there, and you need to drive a certain way, and you need to overcome this pothole in the way that your Jeep or Prius or whatever it is you think you are is. The passenger always believes or acts on what the mind says. The passenger perceives consciousness as reality. But in fact, the passenger is not in control, which sounds disempowering, but that is very empowering, because you're not meant to control the vehicle. Your subconscious will already do what it needs to do.
Trusting yourself kind of thing.
Your higher self, your
higher self.
subconscious, your human design. Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah, Corey.
Yeah, so I guess just what you said, it's whatever our design is, potholes, whatever we experience, they're all parts of a learning journey. We're supposed to, at the end of our design, we're supposed to have a certain, say, a spiritual level, right? All these bumps and bruises, good and bad.
Maybe, but should we have a certain, I mean, maybe it's up to what I think, how this works for me, right? Like this is the life, like if life were in 3 stages, right? You first start off like this, and then you're like, oh, okay. And then the final thing is like, yeah, I'm just gonna like comb my hair in the back seat and sit back and let the driver do the driving. I think the only thing we're meant to do is just enjoy life. But that sounds so bypassy, right? Like, well, what about overcoming challenges? What about addressing life's problems? What about, but I think at the root of it, if we all can do a little to return to who we really are as passengers and not as drivers, it is not a passive thing. It's an active faith. And it's an active stepping into your highest design, your highest self. And it's working in tandem. It's working in tandem. It's okay to be in the passenger seat and go, oh shit, there's a pothole coming. And oh, the car will, like the struts will get affected because it's a deep ass pothole, and be okay with like going through the feelings of all that. But then you return to, okay, like this is my car and I'm gonna sit back and enjoy the ride and let the vehicle do the work. It doesn't mean you suddenly stop caring or you don't try or you stop doing things to progress yourself. It means all of that, but it's an energetic release. And human design is all about the surrender to what we're designing. Yeah.